everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, the one, the only, Aaron William Freeland. And folks, thanks for dropping by. Aaron, how's your day going?
My day's been going pretty well. I had a bit of an issue getting to Union Station today, mainly because St. Patrick and Osgood stations were closed again due to flooding. We had rain at about 11 o'clock and then again at 2:30, and that's when everything shut down. So nice little walk.
So the city doesn't know how to drain water?
Well, the Gardner flooded again. Oh, sorry, the DVP flooded again too. So I'm guessing there's an issue with some of the infrastructure. So
Infrastructure.
yeah,
That's an important item nowadays. It carries a lot of weight and a lot of understanding. So I'm sad to report a friend of mine passed away over the week. Pete Martin. He used to do the play-by-play on radio. He was the color commentator on radio on CFRB. Well, anyway, former Argo. He was up here in the summer in Wasaga Beach. Yeah, great football guy, great football mind, and the guy just loved the game. And he is a central figure, needless to say. I don't think since Schultz there's been somebody who fit almost that exact same mold. You know, somebody that played, dreamt about playing, played for the team, and then did radio. And of course, Schultz did television as well. Yeah, two great guys. And Pete Martin, yeah, I was talking to him for a while. I talked to his wife for a half hour after he passed away. And I got to tell you, Aaron, F cancer. That's all I can say. F cancer.
it's one of those diseases that I wish that nobody had ever heard of because it's taken a lot of family and friends. Uh, you know, he did spend 33 years at Port Credit Secondary. He was an active member of the Argo Alum Association. He was the CFL's Alumni Association Man of the Year in 2016 and was added to the all-time Argos list for all of the work that he'd done.
Last week. Well, not last week, a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, very, very recently. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to meet the man, I don't think. But from all accounts that I've heard about him, he was and will be truly missed.
Actually, you did meet him.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall.
See, the reason I know you met him is because he was at one of the not practices, one of those family Argo things.
Okay.
Anyway, I believe you went to one, and that's a long time ago. The one you
would have been
a long time ago. But anyway, regardless, had him on the show a few times. Another reason why you might not remember is because we have a lot of people, and it's been a long time. Had him on the show as well. Had him on the CFL show. He was a regular guest back in the day. I miss him already. Up here in Wasaga, there's a group of us that knew him, and well, anyway, it is what it is. Wendy and the family, my condolences, of course. They're, you know, it's one of those situations where he wasn't healthy at all, and he was in that phase where people say the suffering is the worst part of what he's going through, and that was, you know, the man took a lot. He was a strong person, and he, you know, loved him to death. Loved his passion for the Argos, for the Canadian Football League. Okay, so thanks for that, Aaron. I appreciate the little background as well. Let's stay in the Canadian Football League and let's talk about the Stamps, who this is a team that's supposed to be on the downslide. What do they turn around and do this past weekend? They treat their home fans to a victory over the BC Lions.
Yeah, the Stamps came out on top, 25-24 at McMahon on Sunday. Jake Meyer threw for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Jalen Philpott led all receivers with 79 yards. Vernon Adams Jr. Threw for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, but unfortunately also added 2 interceptions to that, while William Stanback, anchored the offense for the ground game, rushing for 64 yards on 9 carries. The Lions were the first ones on the board. Stanback had 2 big plays that moved the chains to set up Adams Jr. to connect with Stanley Berryhill III for a 14-yard score. Uh, Both teams were able to stall each other. It actually quickly degenerated into a game with really solid defensive play and very little movement. Uh, but McGinnis broke free, as did Aiden Eberhart for 31 and 32 yards respectively to put Calgary on the BC 11. Stamps defense kicked in, and that's what that is. Uh, it was actually, funnily enough, a ruse that ended up giving the Lions one last point, but it wasn't enough to get back. Close, but no score.
Your mic's a little iffy there, Aaron.
Yeah, is it kicking in and
There,
out? Give me
that's
a second.
better now. That's better
Okay.
now.
All right.
Very good. Long story short, the Stamps win, the Lions lose. The Ticats win, the Argos lose. The Argos threatened to make a comeback. Unfortunately, a missed field goal was the difference in this game by the Argos.
Yeah, hey, it's funny in that last week the Argos beat the Owls. This week, they managed to give the Tiger Cats their first win of the season, which is just one of those things. I guess this Argonauts team has been nothing if not interesting. From looking spectacular
They,
one week to looking like they couldn't tackle their way up
they've
from
been
neck and neck.
consistently inconsistent.
Oof. They've been about as consistent as my mother's oatmeal, which
There
is
you go.
not very.
Yeah, well, they had a couple of lumps in this game, let me tell you. I gotta say, when your starting quarterback looks like a backup quarterback, you're gonna probably have problems. And when your special teams is getting knifed, oh boy, really, it was. They got an ass whooping there. The special teams of the Ticats, the team was fired up. They came out fired up, and they played like they were not going to lose. And good for the Ticats. They looked really, really good. Again, though, the Argos need more consistency under center.
No, it's very true. And when you're held off the board in the first quarter and you get outscored 10-7 and 10-3 through the middle frames, 2 touchdowns in the last quarter isn't going to do it for you. There's got to be some element of consistency here. And unfortunately, it looked like Dukes just couldn't get it done in the first 3 quarters, and they had to bring in Arbuckle partway through the fourth quarter to try to
And
get
guess what
points on
he
the
did?
board. So, exactly.
And guess what he did? Yeah, well, good for the Ticats to get their first victory. The Argos now are in third place, an area they haven't been in a very long time. Mostly because the teams behind them weren't so good. But Ottawa's finally becoming the team that we all thought they could be. But let's go with Saskatchewan at home, winning again, this time against Winnipeg.
Yeah, the Roughies defense actually really came out big, keeping the Bombers to just single digits, which is quite a feat in and of itself. I mean, that is 19-9 win. That puts Saskatchewan now at 5-1-0 and Winnipeg at 2-5-0. This is an abrupt reversal of fortune for Winnipeg, who've been very, very successful the past couple of years. But they looked disjointed. They just didn't look like they had it together, and that is a bad sign definitely for them, especially at this point of the season, being 2-5, and the Roughies are looking like they've finally come alive with the players that they have. So it's been an interesting reversal of fortunes for both teams.
And but no surprise, the Saskatchewan defense dominated, and of course, who's surprised about that? Look who their head coach is, a pretty good defensive coordinator up until this year. Well, we talked about the Red Blacks and how they're much improved. 3-2 now after this great victory, 2 in a row against the Edmonton Elks.
Edmonton seems to find themselves in the same spot that they were last year, which is 0-6-0 at this point, which I don't think is doing anybody in the front office any favors when it comes to heartburn. Um, Lewis Ward made the difference really. Um, this time, he taking the 20-14 victory in front of their home crowd at TD Place. Drew Brown has been a fantastic signing for the Red Blacks. He got 22 of 33 pass attempts for 257 yards. He also did throw two interceptions, unfortunately, but that's when you're going to the air as much as he does, that's going to happen. Justin Hardy led all receivers with 61 yards, and Khalil Pimpleton added another 56. So this Red Blacks team has been a very pleasant surprise at this point.
Yep, very
Um,
good team. This is
yeah.
something they could have been years earlier, but they were going to be a good team eventually. I just can't believe that GM and that situation there could not improve, and it's improving. Let's talk about some signings, and let's talk about the Owls, and they're signing a former Ottawa Red Black.
Yeah, Behar, who's 29 now, is a 6-year CFL vet. He spent 4 seasons with the Red Blacks and was with the Elks for the first 2 years of his career after being chosen fifth overall in 2017. Um, he's had 179 catches for 1,926 yards with 4 TDs through 90 career games. His best season was in 2022 when he posted 727 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Um, They've also signed Bryce Nautry. He's played in 10 games last year for the Owls, his first season in the CFL. He's from Southern Illinois and had 21 tackles, 11 on special teams, and a sack in 10 games. So they're going to be hosting the Roughies tomorrow at Molson Stadium. That should be an interesting game to catch, especially with adding that wide receiver and that linebacker.
Absolutely. The Riders also made some additions.
Yeah, they added Brandon Council. They also released their defensive back Rodney Clemens. Council's coming back to the Roughies after playing 12 games with the clubs in 2023. He made 5 starts at left tackle and 7 starts at right. He also attended rookie minicamp with the New York Jets in 2023. Um, as for Rodney Clemens, it's sad to see him go, but sometimes you have to make room, and unfortunately, players are going to get the short end of the stick when it comes to that. I'm sure he'll pick up with a team that has cap space. So good luck to him.
Absolutely. Let's go over to fast cars, and we'll start with the Honda dealers, Indy Toronto.
This was a very exciting race. And ironically and interestingly enough, it's the first race that Michael and Mario have actually sat down and watched together. So that made things interesting, especially with Mario trying to get Cadillac involved in F1, while also having several teams in IndyCar. Um, the I guess you could say the kind of the highlight. Uh, Certainly a spectacular incident was when Santino Ferrucci actually managed to put himself over Pato O'Ward and rolled his car along the fence out of turn one coming onto the Lakeshore Straight. O'Ward spun into the wall shortly after a restart. Um, as drivers came in, a lot of guys didn't slow down. Pietro Fittipaldi hit O'Ward, and then Ferrucci barreled into O'Ward's car and flew into the catch fence. Was very frightening to watch on television, but you also have to realize with the windscreen and the monocoque and the carbon fiber body and all of the safety advancements that they've made with the head and neck restraint or the hands device, these drivers are incredibly safe. We're not going to have a repeat of the Jeff Krosnoff incident that happened in the early 2000s. So thankfully, nobody was hurt. Um, this is Ferrucci's second crash in 2 races. Sorry, this is Ferrucci's crash. It's the second time in as many races as IndyCar driver has actually gone airborne. My bad. I don't know if you were watching last weekend, but in Iowa, Stingray Robb went airborne after he launched himself over the back of Alexander Rossi on the final lap as Rossi ran out of gas. So, eh, one of those spectacular things. Colton Herta, this is his first win in 21 races. So it's been a bit of a dry spell for him, but he went from pole to flag on Sunday after holding off Kyle Kirkwood for the win.
Tell me about Formula E. What is
Uh,
it?
So this is the I guess you could say it's the redheaded stepchild of Formula One racing and Formula Racing. You've got Formula Two, Three, and Four. You've got Formula Academy, and you've got the all-electric Formula E, which actually provides for some spectacular racing. Uh, Jaguar has a team. Porsche has a team. They were both neck and neck coming into the final race of the season. But Jaguar ended up edging out Porsche for the manufacturer's trophy after one of the drivers, Antonio Felix da Costa, actually got a penalty in the London race. Um, in the hours after the race actually finished, da Costa was actually handed a 5-second penalty for hitting Nick Cassidy, another driver. This penalty dropped da Costa from 5th to 13th. This is how close these cars are, and out of the points. As a result of that, um, it ended up throwing the championship to Jaguar.
Good for Jaguar.
Yep.
Let's go over to the Olympics and the Paris Olympics 2024 Argentina Morocco match featured pitch invasion. What?
Yeah. This was rather spectacular. Christian Medina got a goal very late in injury time to tie the game 2-2. And it looked like it had saved Argentina from losing its Olympics opener to Morocco. But video assisted refereeing, or VAR, ruled that Medina was offside by about half a shoe,
Oh boy.
which gave Morocco eventually the 2-1 win. Following Medina's quote unquote goal, fans actually ran onto the pitch in Saint Etienne, and the match was suspended for about an hour. Even though people have believed that it ended in a 2-2 draw. Um, uh, but yeah, with Morocco up 2-1, 15 minutes was added to the game. And when they finally came back out again, Argentina was unable to re-equalize. So Morocco ended up coming out on top.
Wow.
Yeah.
What. I mean, Argentina, the
Right.
most dominant team in the world before now. Before now. Good for the Moroccans. These small countries in Africa that come through, in the Olympics and in the World Cup, it's so entertaining. It's incredibly interesting. Let's talk about Spygate and Canada staffer detained, coach sent home after drone incidents. What the heck?
So this is it just gets weirder and weirder. A non-accredited Team Canada staffer by the name of Joseph Lombardi was detained and has now been sent home from the games, but only after French police searched his hotel room, recovered the drone footage that he took, and got him to admit that the video of 2 closed training sessions had enabled him to learn the tactics of the opposing team.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he was, spying on New Zealand's, which is never good. His boss, assistant coach Jasmine Mander, has also been removed from the Canadian delegation and sent home as punishment. Apparently, he was operating under orders from her. The COC has indicated
the women's team, the men's team,
the women's team, the
okay.
women's team. Head coach Bev Priestman has also said that she will not be in attendance at the first game against New Zealand, which is the team they were spying on. It's this is self-imposed. The 1-game suspension by Coach Priestman, but it's a way of sort of saying we acknowledge that something was done that shouldn't have been done, and I, as the coach, need to take responsibility for the actions of my assistant coach and the analyst, the staffer. Now, the International Olympic Committee says it's looking into the case, and FIFA is also investigating. The COC actually acknowledged in the second of 2 statements today that there had been 2 drone incidents over the past week. So yeah, now Bev Priestman is denying knowledge of this. She's saying, "Look, I did not. By no means did I direct the individuals. But at the same time, this is a little bit of drama and a bit of a black eye for the Soccer Canada program, to
They
say the
could
least."
be removed from the tournament, Aaron.
Yeah, the ramifications of this are
This is
much
the
higher.
kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff. It doesn't matter whether the coach knew or not. They caught a staffer cheating,
Yeah.
and the plausible denial doesn't work in this situation, unfortunately. And by this situation, I mean if you're going to keep, you know, the Olympics, which on its own, not because of Canada, has done a lot of things that have made it questionable whether this is a real sporting group. We've seen Russians get away with stuff when it comes to using drugs that are not allowed to be used. These are the kinds of black eyes that hurt the Olympics, and it's a shame that it had to be our country involved with doing that. That's a sad situation, Aaron, but it is what it is, I guess. We'll see what happens. The IOC is fearing U.S. FBI probes. They drop a bombshell in Salt Lake 2034 Olympics contract.
So Salt Lake City is going to be hosting the 2034 Winter Olympics again. Um, this will be, I think, the second Olympics that they've hosted. But in the process, the IOC slipped in a clause that could only be considered a veiled threat to U.S. authorities who might want to police doping in the sports. Um, at the 142nd IOC session in Paris, there was a vote that confirmed Salt Lake would get the 2034 Winter Games, but there was a last minute amendment to the host contract. The amendment allows the IOC to terminate the contract in cases where the supreme authority of the World Anti Doping Agency in the fight against doping is not fully respected, or if the application of the World Anti Doping Code is hindered or undermined. The context behind this is there's a U.S. law that allows the Department of Justice to prosecute international doping conspiracies, and that's left a lot of international sports officials afraid of entering the U.S. lest they get wrapped up in an FBI investigation.
Oh boy, boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's a political thing in a sense. It's also a legal issue, and it's above my pay grade. This sounds totally. I don't know. I'd be flummoxed under this situation.
There is
No,
a sorry, there
no, no.
there is a second part to this as well. There is an ongoing U.S. federal investigation of 23 Chinese swimmers who tested positive for a banned substance in 2021 who weren't punished. Chinese authorities are saying that the swimmers had been victims of
It
contamination.
was accidental.
The WADA accepted that explanation and chose not to appeal it. The US ADA and others have raised questions about the case after journalistic investigations brought it to light in April. And Travis Tygart has accused WADA of allowing China to sweep 23 positive tests for a potent performance enhancing drug under the carpet. So
Yeah,
this is
this
where,
is what I was talking about earlier. The Olympics. They've come a long way, and by a long way, I mean they've well, they've so many black eyes, and then they try putting a lot of makeup on the black eye instead of trying to prevent the black eyes from happening. But it is what it is. Let's go over to some NHL hockey and talk about black eyes. Stan Bowman gets hired by the Edmonton Oilers. Stan Bowman, 3 years out of being suspended by the National Hockey League for what happened in Chicago a few years ago.
yeah, he, Al McIsaac, and Joel Quenneville were all quietly kind of reinstated by the NHL on July 1st. Um, the Edmonton Oilers have announced Wednesday that he's been hired as the franchise's general manager. This comes, 3 weeks after Bowman, McIsaac, and Joel Quenneville were reinstated after being punished by the league in 2021. All three were banned from taking executive positions in the NHL after an independent investigation showed that they mishandled sexual assault allegations by former Blackhawk Kyle Beach in 2010 in regard to Brad Aldrich, the team's then video coach. The Blackhawks were fined by the NHL the paltry sum of $2 million, and the team settled with Beach for an undisclosed amount of money back in December 2021. Now, Bowman is actually claiming that he's reestablished a relationship with Kyle Beach, and they have communicated and they have tried to clear up the misunderstanding. And there is no mention of um, an actual apology. Uh, that, but Bowman did say that his response was inadequate back in 2010. He didn't handle things properly. He should have done more. It's something that he's regretted and something that he's a chance to reflect on and to try to learn from. He's been working with a group called the Respect Group, which empowers people to recognize and prevent bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination through interactive online certification. So he took some online courses. 3 years later, they said, "Yeah, you're good to go back."
All right. Vancouver, newly acquired winger Daniel Sprong wants to keep evolving with the Vancouver Canucks.
So this was Daniel Sprong was supposed to be one of those guys that the Leafs were rumored to be in on, along with every other NHL free agent. But he's signed a 1-year deal with the Vancouver Canucks. He's hoping Vancouver's not just 1 year. He says he sees himself being there for long term, and that's really what excited him about signing there. Now, terms of the contract haven't been released by the Canucks, but it's rumored to be pegged at $975,000. Vancouver will be actually the sixth team that Sprong has played for since he was drafted in the second round by the Penguins in 2015. He's played for the Red Wings, the Penguins, the Ducks, the Washington Capitals, and Seattle Kraken. As this was his sixth year, he headed into free agency this summer.
He's been nothing but a free agent his whole career.
Pretty much, I mean, he had 76 points. He had 18 goals, and 25 assists in 76 games for the Red Wings last season. He thought he would get a bigger deal, but I don't think his points total justified him getting more, and he seems surprised by that. I mean, seeing as everybody else in the NHL these days is getting paid, why shouldn't he, right?
Yeah, well, still, there's more to the game than just scoring points, but I'll just leave it at that. And I'm not insinuating anything either. Let's talk about politics. Let's go to Canada, a new microcontinent discovered between Greenland and Canada. And guess what? It has started a little dispute.
Yes. It's not a place you can visit yet, folks. But scientists have discovered a microcontinent between Canada and Greenland below the water's surface. Gondwana Research has a paper detailing the findings. And while the continent is new to us, it's actually been around for a while. The tectonic plates between Canada and Greenland began shifting about 118 million years ago, give or so, eventually creating the Davis Strait, which connects the Labrador Sea and Baffin Bay. Scientists believe that shifting that occurred 33 to 61 million years ago created a thick continental crust beneath the Davis Strait, which they now call the Davis Strait proto-microcontinent, which is kind of cool. Formation of it is still ongoing, but there is currently a dispute as to who would potentially belong to if it does eventually breach the surface. Right now, it's considered to be underwater, but based on tectonic action recently, there is the possibility that it could breach sometime in the next 500,000 to 1 million years.
Canada has been hit by that global outage. Where, when, Aaron?
Everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time. Airports, TD Bank, U.S. border, hospital disruptions, and more. Unfortunately, the update that CrowdStrike tried to push through on last Friday morning, is still not clear. CrowdStrike, said the problem occurred when it deployed a faulty update to computers running Microsoft Windows. It was not a security incident or a cyber attack. The fix has mostly been implemented. They are still working on live faults, but it affects Microsoft's 365 apps and other services. What it basically was doing is it was sending computers into a reboot spiral.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm actually very lucky. I happened to cross the border before the issues arose. I crossed on Thursday night before heading to New Jersey for Friday afternoon. So
excellent.
Yeah, dodged a bullet.
My goodness, it looks like the Bank of Canada is going to cut interest rates.
Yeah, So the intention was to cut it. Again, it's going to go down to approximately 4.75%. Um, Governor Tiff Macklem, governor of the Bank of Canada, signaled at the time that if inflation continues to ease, it would be reasonable to expect more rate cuts. Last week, Stats Canada actually reported the annual inflation rate ticked back down to 2.7% in June after flaring up in May. So that's a good thing. Um, as far as I'm aware, the cut did actually go through today. The next time we're going to be looking at something will be late August, early September.
Residents back home after evacuations in Williams Lake, BC.
So, in light of the expanding forest fires and wildfires, a lot of residents of Williams Lake got a front row look at the wildfire fight to save their community. Everybody panicked, which is understandable, because the fire was, really, really close. Well over 100 people had gathered about a block away as the River Valley fire reached the western edge of the central interior city. It was basically about half a street away from these folks when they finally got around to water bombing it. The blaze was sparked when a tree actually fell on power lines on the River Valley on the city's west side on Sunday afternoon. Um, while the BC Wildfire Service speculated it was human caused, but with the winds at the time, the fire actually managed to make a big run down the valley on Sunday. Thank goodness they were able to beat it back. Um, there are about 440 properties on evacuation order and 3,000 under alert currently. Um, but a lot of folks were actually able to get back home Monday and Tuesday this week.
Unrelenting heat persists in Alberta, and this could spark, no pun intended, wildfire activity.
Now, the problem that we're getting here is that there are increased heat warnings across Alberta and air quality advisories as smoke continues as a result of over 160 active fires in this province and from additional fires in BC. Um, a disturbance from northern BC is going to give way to a thunderstorm risk across western Alberta on Monday. Now, the smoke and heat is going to limit the storm potential at the western reaches of the province, but it could be more of a widespread risk by later this evening and into Thursday morning. There's a massive heat wave. Calgary's on track to see temperatures at or above 30 Celsius for 9 days in a row, which is going to be an all-time record for the city if that happens. The last time something like that happened was 107 years ago, back in July of 1917. So it's not looking good for the western provinces.
Yeah, even wildfire evacuees relieved after evacuating Jasper, BC.
Yeah, they're actually being converged on two sides by wildfires at this point. Jasper National Park has been particularly badly hit, obviously. Winds have been whipping up the fires on the Rocky Mountain town site of Jasper. Parks Canada says a wildfire in the north was 5K away, while another approaching from the south was about 8 kilometers away. The good news is no critical infrastructure in Jasper has been damaged since they actually got out of control late Monday night. 25,000 people, including park visitors, and all 5,000 Jasper residents were forced to flee. So they bulldozed a fire guard. It's been a really, really risky situation.
I think it's hilarious when people talk about, how bad traffic is in Toronto. And then when it's defined as the worst in the world, Aaron, what's up with that? Worst in the world?
Apparently, yeah. According to studies done, there's over 500,000 cars a day that use the 401 right through the heart of Toronto. Um, I don't know if you remember this about a week and a half ago. Niall Horan actually decided to walk to Scotiabank Arena to perform at his concert as opposed to taking a vehicle because it was actually faster to walk from his hotel than to take a limousine. Um, over the past decade, uh, things have
You're that close. Why aren't you walking anyway?
I realistically,
I'm just
maybe
saying.
he's a fan of air-conditioned limousines and doesn't want to spend time with the poors on public transit. I don't know, but yeah, traffic has been consistently getting worse. There are now talking about benchmarks when it comes to the construction that's currently going on the Gardner, right by Exhibition Place. Um, there is talk now that if certain benchmarks aren't reached by August, it could potentially push the finish into early 2026. And if that happens, they're actually willing to suspend construction for the World Cup and then pick it up after.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And the
Oh,
unfortunate thing is, Mayor Chow's getting a lot of heat for this, uh, but unfortunately, she wasn't mayor when the contract
inheritance.
was signed. So,
It's her inheritance. But you know
yeah,
what? You ask for the job, it's all part of what. The same's true that she could make a mistake and the next person will pay for it. So, this is politics. You pick up where the last person left off. Severe storms return to Ontario, Quebec with more rain and a tornado risk.
yes. And this was evidenced today. Like I mentioned, my commute was changed because St. Patrick and Osgood stations both flooded. We had a torrential downpour in Toronto's core at about 11 o'clock and at about 2:30, um, and that had still been shut down by the time I left the office today. But um, try to stay on top of your weather alerts. We're looking at severe storms everywhere from Mont Laurier through to Kincardine and as far south as London and across to Niagara Falls. There's a big cell that's just sort of settled over this particular area. It doesn't look bad out there now, but the downpours that are coming are predicted to be extremely heavy. So if you can get shelter in time, then that's not a bad idea.
Aaron, tell me about Manitoba and this mass eviction, tenants being booted out of their residence.
Yeah, there was a surprise mass eviction from an apartment building. Um, they were forced out on a few hours' notice by a new landlord who essentially put some of their belongings out on the front lawn. Um, uh, there was police officers, a private security firm, and Manitoba government workers present to keep an eye on the three-story brick building, which had been built more than a century ago. Some of the building's windows were broken or boarded up. A notice on the front door from the Winnipeg Fire Department says the fire alarm and sprinkler system were out of service. Um, one of the ladies who lived there, Devaney Hudson, said that a caretaker came to her door 2 weekends ago, told her that she had to leave immediately, and offered her a few $100s. Shortly afterwards, her belongings were outside. She said, I went for a walk for 10 minutes, came back, and it was all on the front lawn. She's been spending the last few days in a nearby house that doesn't actually have working electricity. In another suite, Kyle Lemke got a knock on the door and was told that the locks were being changed. And a man who he'd never met, who said he was the owner, told him he had to leave within 24 hours and said, here's some money. This is one of those things where it's mass renovictions, basically, is what it looks like. Bernadette Smith said the actions the tenants described are actually illegal, and an investigation by the Manitoba government is now underway. Uh, so they're looking to see if they can get those people back into the building. Now, depending on the outcome of the investigation, for the owner, these measures could include the imposition of further orders, administrative fines, and prosecution for contraventions under legislation. So we'll have to see where that goes. But in the meantime, a lot of folks are getting their roofs back.
So in the U.S., Biden makes the decision to not continue running for president. I'm going to say this about that. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, made a decision that shows that he doesn't have a massive ego problem. A lot of other people would have stuck. I'll give you an example. Supreme Court Justice. Sorry, her name. Oh my goodness, her name just ran out of my head. She stayed in when she should have left. Ruth.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She should have left because she didn't leave. The Democrats lost a Supreme Court justice. They'd already lost one when Obama's pick was rejected, and McConnell and company didn't let it go through. Those two picks would have changed if they would have got to use them, and there would have been a 5-4 advantage in a non-political judicial group that's political, 5-4 instead of being behind 6-3. Dobbs died because of that. A lot of things have happened because of that. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have sat down. The price that America's paying for her decision is immense. That's her legacy. And I think Joe Biden understood that and understands, he doesn't have a right to risk the future of America if you believe a Republican win, at least providing the president, is a consequential threat to democracy. He did something unselfish, and he has done again. This is just another thing. His son gets charged, gets found guilty, and he doesn't say anything. Instead, people support his opponent, the whiny little guy that whines about everything. He's such a whiner. Donald Trump is a whiner. That's all he does is whine. And now he's trying to say, and this is the part that makes me laugh, he's starting to say, we shouldn't get personal in politics. I'll stop there.
I I just think it's a rather interesting situation because I was on a bus with a whole bunch of Buffalonians coming back from a lacrosse tournament, and uh, we said, "Hey, we're not going to talk about politics." We pulled into a Subway to get something to eat, and by the time we got back out to the bus 20 minutes later, it's like, "Hey, Joe Biden's resigned." It's like, well, so much for not talking about politics. But now the issue that we're coming to here is who is going to be chosen as the
Vice
is going to be
President.
chosen as the VP candidate. I know one of the names that has actually been thrown out here, and you're going to find this interesting, is the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. He's on his second term there. Um,
He's a
there
Democrat in a very strong Republican state.
he is. The Republicans actually currently have a supermajority in the North Carolina Senate. What that means is, um, under North Carolina rules, Roy Cooper is the governor of the state
But
as long as he's in the state. But as soon as he leaves, power immediately goes to the Republicans. Uh,
they get to
Evidence.
pick one.
Well, here's the thing, and this is why it might not be a good idea. The last time that Roy Cooper uh, left, he went to a 9/11 memorial along with a bunch of other Democratic lawmakers. As soon as they left, the Republicans in the North Carolina Senate passed the budget that they
That's
weren't
right.
able to get through. So, he's certainly attractive, and it's a good idea, I think, for her to pick a strong Democratic governor. But what's at risk when it comes to skullduggery on the part of the Republicans, who are not covering themselves in glory this particular election cycle, anyways, is something that is a genuine concern.
Well, you know, again, this is not about Republican Democrat for me.
Hmm.
It's basically I've got an aversion to Donald Trump. I'm sorry, I just do. I understand people consider him the second coming. I understand that. I understand they think he's Jesus ish. I understand that. But I got to tell you, he's a guy who does a lot of whining and complaining. That's all he does is whine and complain. And I just don't take him seriously, except for the fact that you know I just don't like his whining. I'm tired of hearing the whining. And when you look at Biden and you look at Biden's had a life where he could do a lot of whining. The man lost his wife when he was 30 and being a senator. He lost two of his children were in the hospital. One of them died. His son um, volunteered to go into the army. unfortunately was too close to a burn bit for too long, ended up with cancer and brain cancer and passed away. And he still doesn't whine. You know, I just, for those of you that love Donald Trump, are you whiners as well? Because you can't see how much of a whiner that guy is. And to suggest that that Joe Biden is some sort of whatever, and the guy, I guess, because he shows, um, I guess, and Aaron, I know you're not much for Christian stuff, but because he shows his Christian side, by definition, I mean, definitively speaking, I'm not trying to do a religious show here. He acts the way Christians say they live and believe. But if you look at Donald Trump and the religious right, and you ask yourself, are these good Christians? The name calling, the insults, all that stuff that comes out, and I guess the rest of my beef is going to be, I can't wait to see how Kamala is going to handle it. Now, it's none of my business who wins the election. I'm just a passenger here. It's more of an entertainment thing for me. Although it could affect us, it could impact us heavily.
We have seen populist politics start to leak north of the border, most notably with the member of the loyal opposition in Parliament, who's another individual that I think I feel almost as strongly against as you do, as you feel about Trump when it comes to this sort of thing. I don't want to see that individual in power any more than I want to see Donald Trump in power. It's not, it's not one of those things that I look at with any sort of comfort. At least we're not them, but at the same time, it's like, look at this dude. Uh,
For
you
me,
know,
it's whining.
it is. You'd
So
think for a country as broad and as diverse as ours, we'd be able to come up with more political parties or more leaders to run that were not absolutely deplorable, to borrow a term, people. But this is the situation we're in. So.
we're going to revisit the Kamala Harris connection in Canada now, as we did when she was chosen to be or to run for vice president, and then when she became vice president. Refresh everybody's memories on in as far as Kamala Harris's Canadian connection.
So, her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, is a breast cancer researcher. Um, she moved to the city as a teen so that her mother could work at the Lady Davis Institute of Montreal's Jewish General Hospital. Harris enrolled at Westmount after an initial stint at a French language only school and went to Westmount from 1978 to 1981. Um, Dr. Michael Pollack, who worked with Gopalan in Montreal, described her in a note published on McGill University website as a pioneer who left a mark on the institution, helping to develop a method of assessing cancer's breast tissue that has become standard procedure at the Jewish General and other hospitals. Um, Harris's biography on the White House website doesn't mention her time in Montreal, but she later recalled fondly her years there in a 2021 call with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Um, this was revealed in one of the readouts there. Former classmates described Harris and her sister Maya as good students with promising futures ahead of them. They were extremely bright and intelligent people. They were just so smart, said classmate Trevor Harris back in 2020.
Not the same Trevor Harris that's quarterback for. Never mind.
No, he's a little bit older. Now, in the same 2021 call with Trudeau, in which she reminisced about her time in Montreal, Harris has offered assurances that the Biden administration would do everything it can to secure the release of Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Those two Canadians were released actually later that year. Trudeau and Harris have reportedly discussed a range of issues, including women's entrepreneurship, the COVID-19 pandemic, gender equality, trade, and workers' rights. They met in May in Philly, where they discussed U.S.-Canadian cooperation on a range of bilateral, regional, and global issues. Her roots in the Montreal community appear to go a lot deeper than a lot of people would suspect. It's good to have someone going for political power in the United States who has been exposed to Canada and has knowledge.
Unless you're an American.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
People are trying to turn everything against
you know full well that she'll be branded as a spy.
Well,
spy.
she was a natural born American citizen, and people are saying, well, her parents weren't, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is where Kamala was born, and that was in the States. So,
Yeah, she's a DEI choice as well.
well, we all know that that's dog whistle for something else.
No
So
kidding. No kidding.
it's so disappointing.
Well, on even more serious note, Nygaard sentencing today.
So yeah, this has been a long-standing case here. Um, I haven't seen any follow-up for this, but former fashion mogul Peter Nygaard was found guilty of 4 counts of sexual assault last fall. The sentencing process has been delayed in part because Nygaard's two previous defense lawyers, Brian Greenspan and Megan Savard, asked to withdraw from the case earlier this year. Nygaard, for those who aren't aware, once led a multi-million-dollar clothing empire. He's also faced health challenges throughout the case, and his health is expected to be raised during sentencing submissions. He was found guilty on 4 counts of sexual assault on November 12th, but was acquitted of a fifth count as well as a charge of forcible confinement. These charges all relate to allegations dating from the 1980s until the mid 2000s.
Aaron, I have a PC Optimum card. The privacy commissioner is probing the PC Optimum card.
Yeah, there have actually been some complaints that the Optimum card basically Loblaw customers have been unable to delete their PC Optimum accounts.
Hey.
Yeah, this is a problem. Catherine Thomas, a Loblaw spokeswoman, said that the company has processes to respond to account deletion requests in a timely manner, and that it will fully cooperate with the Privacy Commissioner's office. But the fact that individuals, some have been trying to delete their Optimum accounts for months, haven't been able to do so. Nobody's called them back or anything like that. Now, this is potentially a violation of the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Acts, or PIPEDA, as well as violations of the Privacy Act. The Office of the Privacy Commissioner, Vito Pellicelli, said that, Pilieci, said that they're actually going to be looking into this further because it's not legal for companies to continue to retain your information after you declare that you want to leave them.
That's right.
So,
Well, that's something that needs to be understood. Real quick, Aaron, Coots, Alberta border blockade murderer, conspiracist back on stand.
So one of two men charged with conspiring to murder RCMP officers at the Coots, Alberta border blockade 2 years ago are going to be returning to the witness stand. Chris Carbert, one of the accused, says he paid $5,000 for the A-15 rifle that cops found under his mattress in a police raid of a trailer in the village the night that he was arrested. He told the court that he had no idea that the rifle was prohibited under Canadian law. He and Anthony Olyanik are both being tried together in front of a jury in the Court of King's Bench in Lethbridge. They were part of a group that was wrapped up after police made arrests and seized weapons at the blockade in early 2022. Chris was also one of the individuals who said, "Mother, I may not return home should the RCMP move in. It may be civil war."
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that statement. Aaron, thanks for doing this.
Hey, glad to be here, Frank.
And thanks to everyone who's hung around and checked out what we do here. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, aired Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for Candid Frank Live. Other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.